Well, hello and welcome. This is another CFO presentation. My name is Bill. I'm filling in for Sean while he's recovering from his illness. And let's get started, shall we? Well, let's have a look at the opening range to start off with the SPX. It's very, very important just to see where things are at from a market perspective. And what we're seeing is the market is still very, very neutral at this stage. And the reason has primarily been waiting for, the US government and the Fed to come up with something or say something that would spark a little bit of a fire with the market, either to the upside or to the downside. And that did certainly happen last night. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how things move as of today. And what we're seeing right now, as you can see, over the last few days, the market has been sitting in that neutral territory right over here. So we took the third Friday of the month, which was the 16th of April, and you can see how price remained there, then it went down, and then obviously you can see right over here over the last few days, just staying within that range. So what's that telling us is, well, the market is uncertain. Well, it's waiting for a direction, and the direction, needs to come from some sort of either economic activity or market activity that can be a catalyst or a trigger to find direction. That's basically all it is. And the Fed certainly did come out yesterday with a lot of good things, and so did Biden. And that is hopefully will give the market some form of direction over the next few days to come. So we'll have a look at that, and I'll discuss what that perhaps will look like over the next few days and what sort of opportunities could be there for us, either to the upside or to the downside. Now, let's have a look at what's really happening in the market. I'll just bring that to a daily time frame. We spoke about the SPX in neutral zone, and we can see the head and shoulders working quite nicely on the Nasdaq as well. And we are anticipating a move to the upside. Okay, we are in earnings season. There's some of the trades have really started to show and starting to perhaps lead the market as well with their earnings report. So we had Google announced their earnings a couple of days ago, and Facebook had their earnings last night. And those two stocks have really shot off. And the next ones to come will be Apple. Microsoft's already had its earnings announcements. Unfortunately, Microsoft earnings, though, were better than expected, but the market did not react as favorable for Microsoft. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a few moments. But let's have a look over here. What is interesting, and if you have a look at this, if you recall, we did a resistance level right over here for the Russell 2000. Now, it's broken that resistance, and it's almost like trying to form a little bit of a bull flag right over here. So we'll see how that looks, and we know where the target is for the Russell 2000 at 234.35. So we'll wait with anticipation and see how things look like. And I'll show you what the market is currently, and perhaps give you a little bit of an insight on where my thinking is on what potentially could happen over the next few days. So that's looking okay. You can see the Dow again in that ascending wedge, staying within that price range quite nicely as well. You can see that just retracting a little bit back to the mean. Stocks, regardless of whether they're, an index itself, a sector itself, will always revert back to the 21 EMA. Okay, it's just how it is. It has to come back to its mean, even if it's in an uptrend, downtrend, side trend, whatever it may be. It will revert or find some sort of a touch to the 21 EMA. And just have a look at this transport over here as well. Though it didn't cross it, it certainly tested that 21 EMA. So that tells us that this index is finding support on the 21 EMA. So this is looking quite bullish, the transportation sector. The dollar's obviously moving down, and obviously that will have a fair bit of an impact on local currencies. So if you're in Australia, as an example, mining companies don't like this very much, or companies that do exports and everything else as well. A strong Australian dollar, as an example, means that their exports are more expensive. It does cause a bit of a problem, but it makes things good for the US as well. That their goods are now cheaper and they can send it out, and hence there's a lot of talk happening about a US recovery as well. So that's not a bad thing from a US perspective at this stage. Bonds just remaining neutral from last night, and same with gold. Just trying to find, its presence. Where is it? Where is gold going to be in the market? What sort of picture does it have overall? And at this stage, it's not telling us one thing or another. All it's saying is, look, I'm neutral right now, just working away quite nicely. Now, if the market were to pick up over the next few days, you potentially could see gold maybe just cooling off a little bit, but we'll see how that looks like. We will see. We don't want to preempt too many things. We can just have a look at what's in front of us, make a educated, assertion of what may happen, as opposed to, making a real forecast and saying, well, I'm 100% sure that this is going to happen and everything else as well. We look at the charts, try and understand the best we can. Now, just looking at the Nasdaq really quickly, guys, what I wanted to show you guys, just over here, and I'm just going to bring this on a daily. And though it's not happening just yet, we see this head and shoulders, which obviously this is where the payoff is. However, what I'm starting to see, and I'm waiting for confirmation, is a little bit of an M pattern starting. It hasn't confirmed itself yet. Okay, the M pattern hasn't confirmed itself yet. Okay, all right, and we can start seeing a bit of a move to the downside. Okay, now certainly that could happen. That could happen. We don't know at this stage. There's no real signal there for us. We know where this could take us to based on the previous pattern. So we've got that marked line in the sand. And if you have a look over here, I've got this line right over here. Now, if the price were to break that and we get a move closer to the 21 EMA and a close below the 21 EMA, we could start seeing this M pattern starting to unfold in the Nasdaq. And our target then, obviously then this means that this head and shoulder target at the top, inverse head and shoulder, by the way, has not worked out. And it can happen. It can happen. We don't know. We don't know. So we could say our target would be somewhere over here to the downside. Okay. So very interestingly poised at this stage because the market is neutral. Because the market is neutral, it's sending out all sorts of signal. And when it sends out all sorts of signal, we've got to be very careful which way we go. So we've drawn a line in the sand at $13,868. Now, if it crosses that line, we'll see what that looks like. But more importantly, can it cross that 21 EMA to start showing us that this M pattern is going to start taking shape? So I'll be keeping an eye on that and perhaps draw a line right over here just as a bit of an alert for me. And that will start giving a bit of an idea that perhaps the market may want to really become bearish. But we'll see. We will see. Now, if it bounces off this, and breaks that previous high that I've seen right over here, if it bounces off that, breaks that 1400 level right over here, 14,000 level, then I know that it's going to be pushing for that target that we have. Okay, so make a note of that, and it'll give you a bit of an idea of which way the market is going. Okay, so let's move on and let's just see what's happening in the news side of things. Very, very interesting. The fear and greed, obviously Sean talks about the skew in the CPC side of things, but I just want to look at the fear and greed. As I said, it just makes it a little bit easier for me because it does cover the junk bonds and everything else in there as well. Please get yourself familiar with all this. It is very, very important that you do so you can understand this. So what it's telling me is the market is in greed mode at this stage. Okay, though the overall market appears neutral, the sentiment is that of greed. Okay, Now, I did mention there's some good news coming through from the Fed Reserve and Biden. Is that something that's perhaps bringing the greed in? The other thing that's bringing it in is also earnings. Remember I mentioned earnings season to you guys on our last session. And rightly so, because earnings can boon you incredible profits. It certainly can. So let's just have a look at what sort of announcements and everything else is coming through that could give us a bit of an idea. So while Wall Street's favorite tax break is Biden's target. So obviously tax is going to be a big issue on Biden's side of things, and we'll see how that unfolds. But what is really more important is Fed holds steady on rates, notes recent economic gains. Market like that. Fed chief post-meeting conference. Now, have a read of this. Some good things coming through. And what is Biden's America's family plan? Okay, from taxes to childcare. Now, Biden is putting forward a 1.8 trillion plan, which includes child subsidies and all those sort of things, free preschool and higher taxes on the wealthy and all that. So, that's going to, obviously we've got to bring money from somewhere to give it to, those, I guess, the have-nots, as it were. So let's just see how that works like and looks like. And it's something that market is looking quite favorable too. The other thing that obviously Biden's first 100 days poised as best such stretch for the S&P 500 and Dow since FDR. Wow. We thought Trump was pretty good when he first came into office, but Biden's done even better. So let's have a look at the 100 days on the SPX, just as an example. Okay, so you can see, so we are, let's just say we're just coming to the beginning of May, and let's have a look at the 100 days. So that's about three months. So April, May, so there you go. So have a look at that. Overall trajectory to the upside. Overall trajectory since Biden came into office to the upside. Incredible. Okay. Price does not lie. It doesn't matter what side of politics you are. That I'm neutral as at best. But what I look at is the facts. The facts are there's an upward trend. Okay, there was an upward trend. Market's been going at all-time highs. So that's telling me something. Okay, so there's a bit of confidence there in perhaps what's happening from the Biden administration, more on the fiscal and monetary side of things, along with the Fed. So that's what I look at. Okay, interest rate at an all-time low, big spending. There's looking at ways of taxing the wealthy, and I'm sure the average Joe will not mind wealthy being taxed. It's just a fact, isn't it? So we'll see what that looks like and how that comes across over the next few weeks and months of the Biden administration. But at this stage, what we're clearly seeing is a nice move to the upside. Okay. So that in itself is interesting. Please have a look at that article if you want. That's on Market Watch, something worth looking at. And obviously get yourself familiar with Wall Street Journal. There's a bit of a wealth of information right over there for you guys as well. Now, just from a from a market perspective for tonight, and what we're probably going to be looking at quite importantly is the jobless claims. Okay, and we're looking at pending home sales and the GDP. So we'll see what that's going to look like, and we're hoping for better than expected. And if that comes through, it certainly is going to help the market even more. Okay, it's going to help the market even more. So get yourself familiar with the economic calendar by Econoday. Get yourself, you don't have to register with this website, just get yourself familiar with it, and it will certainly help you from a trading and understanding the market perspective. Make yourself aware and try and have a look at what these reports are saying as well. It is very, very good. Some good things coming through from there, which will try and give you a bit of an idea of what is potentially happening in the market. Now, I just want to go over here to Finviz, and I just want to show you, after Biden came through and mentioned all that he did, have a look at this. The Dow is up, the S&P is up by almost 6.64%, the Nasdaq is up by 1%. A 1% move, folks, is a significant move, up or down. The Russell's up. You can see the Asian markets, Nikkei doing all right. Europe is indifferent at this stage, but you can see the overall market is up. Okay. Now the futures don't sleep. Okay. These indices don't sleep between Monday to Friday. Okay. They don't sleep. So this is all happening before the market opens. So the Nasdaq is already up, and the market hasn't even opened yet, and it's up by 1% at this stage. Now it could go down a little bit, but it looks like, from everything that was said by the Fed last night and what Biden's come up with, it's like where all systems go. We want to make sure that the economy does not falter. We're backing this 100%. It's something the market wants to hear. Now, obviously, the vaccine has its issue, and we've all heard of what is happening, unfortunately, in India. Okay, it is a absolute. It just saddens me to see that a nation going through these sort of things. And obviously, they will blame those that needs to be blamed, and that's just part of human nature. So we'll see what that looks like and how that's going to work out. Because one of the things about India, which most of you may or may not know, is that it is the world's generic pharmaceutical hub. Okay, this is where virtually all your generic medicines are made. It has the largest capacity to make the vaccine as well, and at this stage it can't keep up. Okay, so what does that tell us? What is that going to be telling us? Okay, so some interesting things over here from an Indian perspective. Don't get too bogged down by the politics and everything else of it. Okay, look at the facts. What's there? Is that going to have an impact on vaccine production? Okay, is that going to have it? These are the questions we've got to ask. If you take politics aside, look at the facts. Don't go, right or left or in between. Just look at the facts for what they are. What is this going to look like for the market? And if you start asking yourself those sort of questions, you certainly will start getting more in tune with the market. Okay, so those sort of things certainly please keep an eye on. It will certainly give us a few answers, because companies like Moderna, which is mRNA, is already looking at making more and more of these vaccines as well. So you can see Moderna stocks trying to reach previous highs as well. Okay, so what I would be looking at from a trading perspective is, now I'll look at this high level right over here. In fact, I might just go up a little bit more. Okay, do you guys see there's a little bit of a W pattern forming right over here? Okay, bit of a W right there. Okay, for Moderna. And this is just to give you guys a little bit of an idea. Okay, and that W will play out. Excuse me. It'll literally play itself out very, very shortly. If you're a conservative, the W has already played out. You can see it's already touched that figure right there. Now, what I want to see is a break about $189. Okay, why is that? Because that will give me a bit of an idea that this stock may want to push to 200. Okay, makes sense to everyone? We've got the W, that's done. What I want to see now is a break above this high to a target of 200. Okay, that's what I'm going to be looking at over the next few days and seeing how this is going to work out. Okay, now there was some unusual option activities regarding Facebook. Now, unfortunately, this is a trade that we can't do anymore, but based on what we know and things that we know about Sean's program and everything else, and looking at trades that that we can potentially do with unusual option activity. There was a lot of unusual option activity at the 320 strike for Facebook. Now, earnings had just come out, and this is happening right now. This is pre-market, and with that unusual option activity, with a strike price of 320, Facebook has literally smashed that. Okay, this information was given to our members last night while we were doing the day trading. This information was passed on to our day trading members last night. Okay, another one that I want to just share with you guys, though there's no clear sign on this one just yet, is AMD. Now AMD, okay, has some unusual option activity, bit of dark pools activity at around the $93 mark. Okay, around the $93 mark. Okay, earnings has already been done. This expiration is, I think, on the 21st of May. Now, this is how I would be looking at this particular trade. You bring this price just over here. You can see there's a bit of a resistance support level right over here. So if the stock can close above that 86.90, we certainly will have an opportunity to $93 over here. Okay, so those are just a couple of ideas for you guys in terms of what I'm seeing in the market. Okay, the other thing that we were looking at last week was Oracle. Now, Oracle was in a squeeze, if you recall, and it was in a monthly squeeze. And let's just have a look at that from a monthly perspective. Look at that. Look at that. So Oracle is still going well, still going all right. We want to take it to $100, as a rough estimate, because stocks like round numbers. Stocks like round numbers. You saw me speak about MRNA, and I said, if it can break that current level, we might see, if it can break that 189, we probably could see a target to 200. Highly possible. Highly, highly possible. Just by where things are going for Moderna and all the activity that's happening out there right now in the market. Now, the other trade that we were looking at last week, and let me just type this one in, Disney. Okay, so Disney, as you can see, is still in a squeeze. It hasn't broken out, and it's moving sideways. Why is it moving sideways? Well, we know the market's moving sideways, isn't it? Okay, market moving sideways. So it'll be very interesting to see if Disney can break out of this anytime soon. Now, the longer the squeeze goes, the better it is, the stronger it becomes. So what we want to see is if a breakout is now imminent, you can see it wants to break out at the top. And if it can break out at the bottom, we've got earnings coming out for Disney in a couple of weeks as well. So we want to see how this is going to look like. So keep an eye on this one. And if it breaks to the downside, if this Bollinger Band breaks to the downside, so if it breaks out like that, as it were, okay, and if this one does something like that, as an example, and price breaks out of that as well, like so, okay, it can last for 8 to 10 candlesticks, okay, so that would be a put position, a bearish position to the downside, okay, so there's an idea for you to still monitor, okay. The other one I just want to quickly go over with you guys, because here at Cashflow Options we just want to give you ways of looking at trades and how you can see things for yourself as well. So let's have a look at Netflix, and I just want to show you. Now this, guys, if you're not familiar, now in Sean's program we go through a lot of things for patterns and everything else as well. Now this over here, if I can just, why is it that it's always hard when you're doing a recording? This over here, guys, is a bear flag in formation, okay? A bear flag in formation. Now, if this can break the bear flag for Netflix, okay, I'm just going to draw a line just right there, like so, okay? Now, Netflix had earnings come out, was not what they expected, and the stock has been moving down and sideways ever since. Now, if this were to break that, I would say break the 500 mark, okay? That's where I would have it at, okay? Nice round number, okay? Nice round number, 500, okay? Why? Stocks like round numbers, as I said. If it can break the 500, we can have a move to around 450, all right? So you can see, and Netflix isn't really in a squeeze by any means. And I've had a look at it from a smaller time frame as well. Nothing really there suggesting, but it is, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It is in a weekly squeeze. Look at that. Look at that. If it can break that, happy, happy days. So let's just quickly have a look at Netflix on a weekly. Okay. We just love to give you guys some great ideas. Look at that weekly squeeze. Just hovering right there. Just hovering right there. Okay. Perfect. Breakout. Boom. First target. You'll meet it in no time. In a breakout, once it breaks out or breaks down in this instance, if it were to go down, okay, it can go down to 8 to 10 candlesticks. Okay. Happy, happy days. Well, so what have we spoken about? Just to do a bit of a recap, we spoke about the opening range where the SPX is. We looked at the major indices. We looked at that the Nasdaq could have a potential M pattern coming through. Okay, I'm just going to do that right there. Okay, so you can see that potential. I'll just bring that to a daily right there. So you can see that M pattern right there. Okay, all right. I've told you how to look at this. Okay, how to look at this. Now, you could probably trade the QQQ or XLK as an alternative. You can see that M pattern right over here, guys. Okay. Now, if it's follow the Nasdaq, see how things go, and if the Nasdaq starts breaking down, okay, if the Nasdaq starts breaking down, from that M pattern, okay, if it starts breaking down from that M pattern, okay, you could have a target around 128. All right. So I hope that has helped you guys in terms of just getting a bit of an idea. You know, we know where the market is. We know what sort of economic announcements are coming out tomorrow, which is tonight, which is the jobless, housing, and GDP. Okay, so we know that's happening. We know vaccine. There's a huge ramp up from Moderna coming through for more of those vials that they need to produce. We also know that India is a major manufacturer, a generic manufacturer, and has got one of the largest supply chains in the world in terms of pumping out generic medicine and these injections and everything else for the vaccine. So we're going to see what does this look like for India as well, okay? And what sort of impact could that potentially have on the global supply? Are the American companies, are the European companies, are other companies in Asia going to pick up the slack? Okay, so we've got to see how that's going to look like over the next few days as well, because the vaccine needs to be delivered. So very, very interestingly point, we looked at the fear and greed. The market is in greed. We verified that through what's the announcements coming from Biden and the Fed Reserve. So overall, market is looking bullish. We are currently in neutral zone. Pre-market is telling us that the market wants to move to the upside tonight. And we will find out after today's trading close. So a lot of stuff happening there. We've went through some trade ideas with you guys. So we looked at Oracle, which was still going strong. I spoke about Disney. I spoke about Netflix. So we've got quite a few things. And I mentioned XLK as a potential trade based on the Nasdaq as well. So a lot of opportunities coming over here, and Netflix is also in a weekly squeeze as well. So how good is that, guys? I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was informative as well. Just gives you a bit of an idea of how we think and how we start looking at trade ideas. Never jump into a trade, guys. Look for an entry. Always have an exit for a profit and have an exit for a loss as well. Okay? Wait for the market to give you the entry. Don't force an entry. On that note, guys, from everyone here at CFO and the team and Sean Allison, and we hope that he is recovered soon and gets back to duties in no time. We thank you all, wishing you all the best. Look after yourselves, and bye for now.